One of the best kept secrets from beginners is how to use the debugger. The debugger is a tool that is built into Visual Studio and many other IDEs, and it allows you to run your program line by line and see which lines of code are being hit and what the values of each variable are at at the beginning of each line. So I've coded a little example program here that validates a password, so it verifies that the password contains at least one capital, one lowercase letter, one number, and one symbol. I'll show you the details of how it's implemented as I debug the program. So first of all, I'll debug without any breakpoints. So here are the passwords that I'm trying to validate on the left of the colon in each line. And so the right of the colon is the validation result. True means it passed validation, and false means it failed validation. So we see the only one that got a result of true is the one that does contain at least one lowercase letter, uppercase letter, number, and symbol, and all the others failed. So this function seems like it might be working. Let me verify with the debugger. So this one over here, it doesn't contain any numbers, so as we step through this program we should see it verifying that it doesn't have any numbers. So let's debug again, and now that I have a breakpoint set, so this little red dot here, I created that just by clicking in this gray area off to the left over here. It's pretty similar in other development environments like Eclipse or VS Code or something like that. And now I get this yellow arrow to indicate that it's about to run this line of code, and that line of code is also highlighted in yellow. And we get these debug windows here, like locals shows me the value of all my local variables, password is set to ABC all caps, args the command line arguments, none were passed in. And we see three buttons over here that allow me to navigate my code one line at a time. We have step over, which is F10, we have step into, which is F11, and step out of, which is shift F11. So I want to go inside of this function call to validate password, so I'm going to press step into, press F11 to step inside of that function, and now let's see how it verifies that this doesn't contain any numbers. So I'm going to press F10 to step over, and so let me just step inside of this contains one char function just to show you how it's written. So now I have the yellow arrow on the first line of contains one char, and in my watch window I can see the parameter values. I can also mouse over these variables to see their values. And on the right here we have this call stack window that shows me the code path that I took to get to this point. So if I want to see how did I get here, I can trace my way back through there. And if I want to, I can check. So it goes through every character in the string to check, which is capital ABC, required chars is all the capitals, and I hit this line return true because it does contain a capital, the required chars does contain a capital A. So now it's going to check if it has any lowercase letters. Let's see what happens here. We expect this to be false, so if I don't really need to step in and see all the details, first of all let me step inside. And if I don't want to go through all the details of like iterating over this loop, I can press shift F11 to return from that function without stepping through each line. And now I'll just press step over, and so now I realize that contains one char returned false when we called it with lowercase, which is what we're expecting. Our password is all capitals. And we hit this line return false. So at this point we've realized that we actually have not verified that it doesn't contain any numbers. Right, that was the reason why I was debugging, because this string does not contain any numbers. I want to see the process of how it actually verifies that. So in this case, I've realized that I haven't actually tested that scenario of not containing any numbers. So let me run this again, and let's remove this breakpoint, and let's see if any of my other test cases hit this line. So the first time I hit a breakpoint near the entry point and then stepped inside of many functions to see how it was running. Another thing I can do is just put a breakpoint on the line of code that I am expecting to be hit. And now if I hit debug, it never hit that breakpoint. So I've never actually tested that scenario of a password that doesn't contain any numbers, even though it looks like it over here. So how can we actually test that scenario? Well, from reading this, it looks like it's not going to actually check for numbers unless the password does contain both capitals and lowercase. So let's add a lowercase string to this test case, and let's debug again. So now I am hitting the breakpoint that I want. I'm returning false because our password didn't contain any numbers. So I'll just continue. And if I want to actually trace which lines of code that were hit to verify, just to actually see it happening, I can set a breakpoint back on the original line of code, and let's debug again, and let's step into, I'll just step over contains one char now since we've seen how that works. So it does contain a capital, so we did not hit the return false as expected. This does contain lowercase, so we expect to not hit this line. Okay, working as expected. Now contains one char numbers. Let's step inside that. And required chars are all numbers. Current char is not a number. And by the way, I can just set a new breakpoint here. And let's also set breakpoints here and here to see which one it hits, and I'll just F5, capital C, F5, lowercase a, lowercase b, lowercase c. And the reason I set breakpoints here and here is because you might not be paying attention to whether or not you're at the end of the string. So just in case you forget to step over at this point, just in case you accidentally hit continue again, you will hit one of these other breakpoints and you return false. So this check for numbers does seem to be working as expected. Let me step over and step over again, and we hit this line of return false. So now we've verified that we have run the code to actually check that there's no numbers in the proposed password. So that's it for how to use the debugger. This is useful not only for investigating bugs that are in production, but also just for verifying that your code really works the way that you think it works before you even submit it to the test environment. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. See you later.